There's a lot of concern all around the world about underage drinking. There's concern because young people are more vulnerable than adults to some kinds of alcohol-related harm, and there's concern because sometimes young people, when they drink, get a bit out of control and they cause harm not just to themselves but to other people and to property. So is there a solution to this issue? Well, most countries have what they call minimum drinking age requirements. These are laws that state that there's a minimum age at which people can purchase or consume alcohol. It varies quite a lot from country to country, and the laws themselves are rather different. But basically, round about the age of 18, 19, 20, 21, the laws of most countries say that before that age, people shouldn't either purchase or consume alcohol, and that after that age, it's legal to do so. Most countries, the average would be 18, but some countries, the United States is the most obvious example, have a higher minimum drinking age of 21. Now, that doesn't mean that in some circumstances, like parents allowing their children to taste alcohol in the home, that there can be exceptions to the rule. But the law is the law. It's important to make it clear that this is a legal issue. It's not a scientific issue. There isn't really any scientific reason to set this threshold at one age or another. That's a question for a country to decide in terms of their drinking culture and in terms of the way they want young people to behave generally. But it is, nonetheless, the most important response that countries offer to the problem of underage drinking. However, there's more to it than just the law. There are many influences over a young person's drinking behavior. Their parents, for example, will influence them strongly. Other family members will influence them strongly. As they grow older, their peers, that's to say that the people who are the same age as they are, their friends and people they admire, will influence them strongly. And the media, including advertising, will influence them too. But what's the strongest influence of all? Without doubt, throughout their lives, it's their parents. That remains the strongest influence over their drinking behavior throughout their adolescence into early adulthood. So if one's looking at trying to minimize the problems associated with underage drinking, it's important not just to address the young people themselves, and that is important, but it's also important to address their parents, because their parents will be the models or at least the sources of advice that these young people will call upon if they think that for some reason their drinking is getting out of control. And obviously there are specific issues to do with drinking and driving that are especially important, because a young person is by definition an inexperienced drinker, and they're likely, if they're driving, to be an inexperienced driver. And when these two forms of inexperience coincide, the potential for harm is obviously much greater. So as you look at issues to do with underage drinking, it's important also to look at issues to do with learning to drive and learning to be a responsible road user. So underage drinking is not just a unitary thing. You can't solve it with a single bullet by saying, well, if we stop people drinking before a certain age, then it's all going to be fine. For a start, they won't all stop. Many people do drink below the minimum drinking age, and that's likely to go on happening. It's a fact of life. So what you want to do is to make sure that the world is as safe as it can be in those circumstances, and many people have a role to play in doing that. But the most important of all, the parents.